It was just after sunset on September 17, 2024, when a quiet stretch of Highway 41 outside the small town of Millbrook, Tennessee, became the center of a confrontation that would spark a heated debate about constitutional rights, police authority, and how quickly a routine call can spiral into something far bigger than anyone expected. 34-year-old Marcus Bennett had already been walking for nearly 18 miles that day, following the narrow shoulder of the highway with a worn backpack slung over his shoulder and the fading orange glow of the sky stretching behind him. His destination was simple, his uncle's house on Thornhill Road, but what happened before he could get there would change the course of his day and eventually ignite a storm of discussion online. A passing driver had called 911 reporting a suspicious man walking in the road, and minutes later the quiet hum of traffic was broken by the slow approach of a police cruiser belonging to the Millbrook Police Department. Officer Daniel Reeves stepped out, body camera already recording, approaching Marcus with a mixture of caution and authority as cars rushed past only a few feet away. The officer's first words were direct, telling Marcus he couldn't walk in the roadway and that there was a sidewalk on the other side of the highway. But Marcus calmly responded that he was walking on the edge of the shoulder and simply trying to reach his destination. What started as a simple exchange quickly turned into a tense legal debate unfolding on the side of a busy highway, with Marcus insisting that pedestrians had the same general right to use the roadway shoulder as cyclists, while the officer argued that being that close to traffic created a safety hazard. As the conversation continued, the officer asked Marcus for identification, and that's when the situation shifted dramatically. Marcus politely but firmly declined, asking a simple question that would become the central issue of the entire encounter. Am I legally required to identify myself if I haven't committed a crime? The officer insisted he had the right to demand identification because of the 911 call and because Marcus had been walking in the roadway, but Marcus stood his ground, explaining that he believed he was within his constitutional rights. For several minutes, the two men stood just feet apart while semi-trucks thundered past them, their conversation turning into a surprisingly calm but intense debate about the law. Marcus repeatedly explained he wasn't trying to cause trouble, that he was just walking to a relative's house and trying to get his life back on track after difficult years, yet he also made it clear he wasn't willing to surrender what he believed were his rights simply to make the interaction easier. Officer Reeves warned him that refusing to identify himself could lead to arrest, giving him what he described as two options: provide a name and date of birth for a citation, or be taken to jail where police would determine his identity through fingerprinting. Marcus paused for a moment, clearly understanding the risk, then quietly said he would rather face arrest than give up what he believed was a constitutional protection. Seconds later, the officer placed him in handcuffs beside the patrol car as headlights streamed past them in the darkness. Even while being detained, Marcus remained calm, explaining again that he wasn't resisting and that he respected the officer, but that he believed the demand for identification without a clear crime was unlawful. Inside the patrol vehicle, the officer contacted his supervisor, explaining the situation and asking whether he should proceed with a citation for walking in the roadway. What happened next added another layer to the controversy. During that call, the officer admitted on camera that if Marcus had simply provided identification earlier, he probably wouldn't have issued any ticket at all. That statement would later raise serious questions about whether the citation was based on an actual violation or simply frustration over Marcus asserting his rights. Eventually, after nearly 20 minutes of back-and-forth discussion and phone calls, Marcus finally provided his name and date of birth under protest, repeatedly stating he was only doing so because he was already under arrest. The officer then issued him a citation related to pedestrian traffic laws and removed the handcuffs, allowing him to leave with a court date scheduled for several weeks later. As Marcus walked away down the dimly lit roadside with his backpack and citation in hand, the officer remarked that the entire situation could have been avoided if he had just identified himself from the beginning, but Marcus responded with a quiet sentence that perfectly captured the moment. Sometimes rights only matter if someone is willing to stand on them. What should have been a simple welfare check had transformed into a powerful example of how unclear laws, conflicting interpretations, and the tension between authority and individual liberty can collide on the side of an ordinary highway. Now the question remains, was the officer enforcing the law, or did a citizen get punished for asserting his rights? And more importantly, what would you have done in Marcus's position if you were standing there with flashing lights behind you and a decision that could send you either home or to jail?